Turf and surf is a deceptively simple route that rewards patience, positioning, and timing more than raw power. At 24.7 kilometers with just under 200 meters of elevation gain, the profile hides its difficulty by placing nearly all of the meaningful efforts in the second half of the race. This recon uses footage from two very different races, my own smaller Cat A field with 15 riders, and Jay's from Wolf Cycling's ZRL Cat C race with nearly 60. That contrast is important because turf and surf can play out differently depending on your group's size, but the core tactics remain the same. Survive efficiently through the first half, then race aggressively and intelligently once the climb begins. The race begins with a quick right-hand turn out of the pens, immediately revealing the finish banner. This matters. There's no lead-in and no warm-up gradients to ease you in. Instead, the road subtly kicks up to 3 or 4%, and larger groups will almost always hit this harder than expected. There's no power-up before the alley sprint, so your only job here is to stay calm, stay in the draft, and avoid unnecessary surges. As the group funnels towards the alley sprint at just 700 meters, positioning matters more than power. Stay tucked in, let the elastic stretch, but don't let it snap. After crossing the alley sprint banner, you'll receive your first power-up. This is where you quietly hope for a feather because the race will ultimately be decided on the climbs later on. In both Jay and my race, neither of us rolled a feather. Not ideal, but also not race ending. Immediately after the sprint comes a sneaky false flat. This section often feels harder than it looks, but rarely hard enough to cause real splits. The correct mindset here is alert, not aggressive. Stay engaged, but save your legs for the more difficult sections later in the race. As the road bends towards Neokyo's arcade district under the roads with a red bike path, attacks often appear, not because they're smart, but because the riders get restless. Both races show moves going here, especially just after the underpass. Also, the larger the group, the more chaotic the response. Case in point, Jay's group is going absolutely ballistic as riders panic to retain their position. However, the key insight is this. The rolling terrain and constant turns heavily favor the peloton. Watch as Jay calmly reacts and regains their position before entering the arcade. If you enter the arcade near the front of the bunch through the twists and turns, the effort's manageable. If you drift back, gaps can open simply from hesitation. My advice, give a small push into each corner, not to attack, but to protect your position in the peloton. Riders' drops here are rarely underpowered. They're just inattentive. If you find yourself on the wrong side of the gap in this section, this is one of the few early moments where using a power-up is justified. Group momentum for the next 15 kilometers is far more valuable than saving a power-up you'll never get to use. Leaving Neokyo, the race enters a short but critical gravel tunnel. Rolling resistance increases, and this is a real spot where attacks can cause splits. The effort required isn't massive, but hesitation is punished. Both of our groups start to stretch a bit, with a serious move appearing on Jay's end. Still, Jay stays nice and calm in the largest part of the bunch on the roads that have constant gradients of -1 and -2%. This slowly leads to a more serious downhill section. All in all, this shows us how powerful the group's momentum is here. Any attacks can be countered with a rather minimal effort. Once you cross the second bridge in this descent and see significant twisty roads, -4 and 5% gradients will really let you come off the pedals. The road also switches back to tarmac, improving draft. This is where discipline matters. Spin lightly, fuel, and breathe. This is one of the most important recovery windows of the race. At the bottom of the descent, the road switches back to gravel. This looks like a recovery section, and mostly is until a sneaky bridge appears with a short 4% rise just after passing through the frame of a boat. Go into this section prepared to push on the pedals, especially since there's no elevation profile warning. Overall, a classic ambush point. If you're a sprinter looking to soften climbers or a strong rider sensing hesitation, this is a legitimate place to apply pressure. The following winding coastline and slight descents usually keep things together, but the efforts in the peloton's legs certainly add up. The race truly begins at the Festival Harbor climb. This counterclockwise climb is 2 kilometers long, averaging just under 3%, but it's decisive. Miss the front group here and your podium chances are efficiently over. Before the climb starts, there's a brief opportunity to tailgun and seal one final moment of recovery. Use it. Once you hit the wooden bridge, you must already be positioned near the front. In Jay's race, he smartly starts outputting some serious watts before the climb begins, allowing him to safely secure position in the front of the pack when group momentum is less beneficial. I can't stress enough just how important pack positioning truly is early on in these short, punchy climbs. On the climb proper, the tactics here are consistent and repeatable. Draft as much as you can in the yellow, push in the red. A feather can be effective here, but ideally only use it if your position is being compromised. Using it too early in the blue or yellow sections wastes its benefit. The most dangerous part of this climb comes after the wooden bridge, when the road returns to tarmac. Any effort you can make here could save your race. Jay and I both ride this section perfectly. Heart rate's in the 180s, but our position is safe in the largest bunch of riders in the peloton. Crest this climb in the front group and you've done the hardest part and earned the opportunity for a top position in today's race. Over the top, a long, fast descent follows. This will give you your final power-up of the race, so again, pray to the Zwift gods and hope for a feather. If you do not roll the power-up for your final climb, consider saving it for the final sprint. This descent is your final major recovery opportunity. With gradients touching -6%, the pack will bunch and flyers will be reeled back in. Do not chase every move here. Unless a large, motivated group forms, most attacks will fail. This is because individuals in a satellite group will try and save their legs for today's final effort. Slowly we approach the snaking roads near Mangrove Maze. This is a short, punchy section that stings far more than expected. The smart move is patience. Let others burn their matches here. Jay makes a little move to try and close a gap, which might cost their legs down the line. Personally, I would enjoy the draft and attack just after the road switches back to gravel. If you're feeling strong, attacking just after this change can be effective, especially if a group falsely believes that the climbing is over. TT and long-range specialists take notes as we see a rider do just this in my race for the final 3.5 miles. Flyers will even gain another slight advantage here as the road switches back to gravel before the Pain Cavern climb. This climb is where the race is decided. At 1.3 miles long, with an average gradient of 3%, this climb feels harder than the numbers suggest due to its staircase-like profile. Ride this climb from the front third of the group. Just like the previous one, early positioning is critical. Watch as Jay moves up because he leaned into the group's momentum at the perfect time. As for what lies ahead, the climb alternates between sharp 6% ramps and draftable 1-3% sections. Just as before, push hard in the red, then do what you can to recover whenever the road softens. Obviously you won't fully recover, but this is where efficient riders gain massive advantages. The second section of staircase-like climbing is very similar to the first. Tactically speaking, I should not be leading out the chase group as we try and catch the flyer in the front of the race. They're far too gone, and I should now be drafting the small group of riders for marginal gains for the upcoming sprint. Jay, while being distanced from the group, is still giving themselves a chance to catch by smartly sitting in the draft of the other riders and digging in. Being less than a mile from the finish, this last-ditch effort is worth it, though very difficult considering the riders ahead are already on flat ground and starting to benefit from the group momentum. From this we learn, if you want to be in the front group for the finish, make your final dig on the second series of stepping climbs instead of waiting for the blue roads near the top of the climb. This also marks the second series of steps as the smartest time to use your feather. When exiting the tunnel, roughly 1 kilometer of riding remains. If you're solo, it's time to commit to TT mode. If you're in a group, expect the pace to stay high as riders try and hold off chasers. The finishing sequence is fast and deceptive. A downhill sprint, a flat, and then a brief kick before the line. Draft the descent, stay hidden on the flat, then punch hard. Timing matters more than peak power here, as Jay demonstrates perfectly a well-timed move can overtake the entire pack. Surf and Turf rewards riders who respect its rhythm, save early, position smartly, spend your matches where they matter, survive Festival Harbor, race Pain Cave Cavern, and never forget, efficiency wins this course.